Hello you sexy beasts and welcome back to ASMR Thunder. I did kind of promise that I was going to make a Portuguese G91 video next, but sadly I can't do that right now because it is 3 AM and I can't really shout in Portuguese. So instead I'm going to give you a sort of review of the Mi-24P. The Mi-24P is the second to last helicopter in the Russian tech tree at a build rating of 9.7. And let me tell you, this thing is quite a gunship. The main armament consists of a 30mm GSH-32K cannon with 250 rounds and a firing rate of about 2600 rounds per minute, giving you a firing time of roughly 10 seconds. Now this cannon is completely fixed. It cannot pivot like in the previous helicopters, and as such, you have to play it a bit differently. The cannon is extremely powerful, having by default a selection of HEFI and APHE shells with up to 60mm of penetration, which can further be upgraded with the ground targets belt, which gives you a pure AP shell with up to 65mm of penetration. This turns this gun into kind of a A10 Warthog alike, essentially, giving you the ability to strafe tanks from the front, from the sides, from the rear, and destroy them with the main cannon. Apart from the main cannon, you also come standard with up to 80 S8KO rockets. These are highly accurate, high explosive and tank rockets with 400mm of penetration and a speed of 610 meters per second. These can be used effectively to spam enemy tanks out, but require you to be at a decently close distance. And since they are small caliber heat rockets, they also don't have much of a splash damage effect, meaning that you need to be quite accurate with your rocket placement. In terms of armament upgrades, your first choice is going to be between the C-24 rockets and the 250kg bombs. In terms of bombs, you can carry up to 4 250kg bombs or 2 500kg bombs. These are not recommended, given the simple fact that actually dropping bombs accurately in helicopters can be a bit of a challenge, and especially so without getting caught in the blast radius yourself, destroying yourself in the progress. The only way to safely use these would be to use a very long delay, which would make them completely useless against any kind of a moving vehicle, and as such you could only use them against fixed bases. Yet if you actually won't want to use this against bases in helicopter EC, you would be much better off with the regular rockets. The choice is clearly the C-24 rockets, and given that they also open up the path to the later ATGMs. The C or S-24 rockets are essentially the Russian version of the American Tiny Tims. These are very large caliber high explosive rocket warheads with an explosive penetration of about 80mm. If you can hit a heavily armored tank from the top, it's going to be almost guaranteed a one-shot kill, and even lightly armored vehicles can probably be destroyed by a bit of splash damage. Sadly, you can only carry up to 4 of these, and as such usage is a bit limited. If rockets aren't your style, you can also choose to use 23mm GSH-23-2 gun pods. These are fixed gun pods, meaning that they cannot pivot, and as such you can't adjust your aim, you have to use the helicopter itself to aim, and they carry two 23mm guns which fire extremely quickly. Each of these gun pods can carry up to 125 rounds, and since you can carry up to 8 of them, they give you the highest burst rate in the game, by far. Combined with the main gun, a total burst mass of 48 kilograms per second. This is completely ludicrous and completely unusable, given that the recoil will shake your whole helicopter rounds. So much so that you could theoretically fly on the recoil of these guns alone. So I suppose if you need to get out of a sticky situation in a hurry, you can just use the 4 gun pods to literally revert out of battle. As mentioned, sadly these gun pods are really not that useful. In helicopter-to-helicopter combat, the main gun is going to be more than enough to deal with enemies. And in fact, having just a single main gun is going to be better than having the gun pods installed, simply because of the ludicrous amount of recoil that will make aiming pretty much impossible. As such, gun pods, whilst fun, they are not recommended. And to further rank of modifications, you also have a choice between equipping the 9M114 Sturm ATGMs. These mouse-aimed anti-tank guided missiles have up to 650 minutes of penetration and travel at 400 meters per second, which is faster, quite a bit faster, than the TOW and the TOW 2 that the American helicopters get, which makes them actually quite useful for long-range anti-helicopter combat, given that you have the skill and the aim to use them in that role. Given the 650 minutes of penetration, you can also use these effectively in ground RB against player-controlled tanks. Although keep in mind that you only get up to 8 of them with the tier 4 upgrade. Otherwise you're limited to 4 with whatever other loadout options you choose. Now whilst I do recommend going for the ATGMs first, simply because of the ground RB capabilities and the anti-helicopter capabilities, you also have the choice of carrying air-to-air missiles. Two different variants. The first is the R60 air-to-air missile. This is a missile with a 5 km rear aspect lock-on range, an 800 meter per second velocity, and up to 18 Gs of possible turning. These are very effective if you can actually get a solid lock on target, but given that they don't have an all-aspect lock-on range, it might be a bit tricky to use them against enemy helicopters. With the tier 4 R62 upgrade, you can then carry an additional 2 for a total of 4 heat-seeking missiles, which is double the amount that the AH-1Z gets. Now whilst the base R60s are not too reliable against enemy helicopters, you do have the option of upgrading to the R60M. These are by far the best anti-air missiles that the Russians get. The R60M retains the same velocity and 5 km rear lock-on aspect range, but gains the ability to actually get an all-aspect lock up to about 2 km, and it can now pull 20 Gs, which is a 2 G upgrade over the old R60s. These are extremely effective against enemy helicopters without countermeasures. Essentially anything that's an Alouette, an earlier AH-1, a UH-1, they have absolutely no chance of evading this missile. It is a bit cheesy at some points, but these are likely going to be your main weapon for helicopter EC. That said, flares and countermeasures are extremely effective against these missiles. And as such, if you are facing later variant Mi-24s or AH-1Zs, which you do know that have flares, you might be better off either using your main gun or the ATGMs. Now supposing that you do have all the ordnance options unlocked, there are two main loadout options that I can recommend. For tank RB, and especially given the current Russian dominance in the airspace thanks to the Tunguska, it is very much recommended to use 8 Sturms. Now you can choose to use the 8 Sturms by themselves if you don't want to deal with the extra weight of unguided rockets and just want to go destroy tanks from a very long range. But since you do have the extra slot open, I do recommend also bringing the 40 heat missiles. You might not be able to use them in tank RB, but it's always better to have the option. And just in case, you can also spam them out against enemy helicopters or enemy aircraft that are attacking you. For helicopter EC, nothing beats this last loadout of 4 R60M missiles, 4 Sturm missiles and 40 rockets. This loadout makes the Mi-24 one of the most versatile helicopters for helicopter EC, giving you the ability to both very effectively engage ground targets and helicopters, enemy helicopters, both at very long ranges with the ATGMs or at closer ranges with the air-to-air missiles. This is the main loadout I choose to grind with. The top speed of the Mi-24P is essentially the same as the earlier Mi-24 variants, given that the engines are the same, about 340 to 350 km per hour once fully upgraded. This is slower than the AH-1Z, which is ludicrous over 400 km per hour speed, but it is enough to generally be able to either catch or run away from all the lower tier helicopters. AH-1s, UH-1s, Alouettes, anything that's in that sort of category, you really don't have a problem either getting close to use your main gun, or running away from if you are out of ordnance or hurt. As you can see, the Mi-24P does have a decent amount of armor, which makes it mostly immune to lower caliber fire. Rifle caliber is what I'm talking about here. Higher caliber heavy machine gun fire can do a decent amount of damage, and anything 20mm and up with the cannons is going to absolutely destroy you. Now, despite the general added tankiness over other helicopters, you are a bit of a large target, given that this does have quite a bit of space for troop transport. As such, you are a very easy target for enemy anti-tank guided missiles if you are not paying attention. But enough talking, let's get this thing into battle and let me show you what you can do with this gunship.
Your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find